on to live stream, so you're on.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say, okay, cool. Thank you, Rob. You know, my son is.
Alrighty, we're gonna convene the meeting. It's 5:35. And first, we have to determine that a quorum exists, and we seem to be missing Cheryl, but otherwise we have 4 members. So we're able to conduct business. The first issue of the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the 8/21/25 meeting. So I printed out a copy for everyone just to refresh your memory, because it was a while ago. It's in this. somewhere. So if you have any questions on it, Tad can probably answer them.
Being self-serving, I will make a motion to accept it.
I second, all in favor? Alrighty. Next thing is to discuss new business. It's hearing for a special exception for the town of Big Island to zoning ordinance section 419.2 for North Road, which is map I-05. We'll ask, does anyone have a conflict of interest and feel they can't, anyone on the board feel they have a conflict? Okay. And proper notices were given. To summarize the appeal, the town has submitted a request for a special exception for compliance with zoning ordinance section 206.8 E1 and section 206.8 E2. This review is for a special exception, and zoning ordinance 419.2 grants the Board of Adjustment and Appeals authority to approve parking arrangements that provide public access to the beach or public area. And the town of Big Island has authorized GEI consultants to act as its agent in this matter. In this instance, there's no application fee because the town submitted the application. So. Okay, so. We will hear from the applicants first, which in this case is the town and represented by Lisa Vickers of GEI Consultants. And then we'll hear from abutters and members of the public. And we'll then close the hearing to public comments, deliberate, make a decision, and then come back and reopen the meeting for the second part of this, the second hearing. So Lisa's getting her displays up on.
Almost there. Yeah, so you're right?
Yeah.
Thanks, thank you so much. Can I sit here? Okay.
Who's there a second? It was there a second.
Then there we go. Very simple. I won't move it.
Hello, I'm Lisa Vickers with GEI Consultants. And as mentioned, we were retained by the town to look at parking along North Road. So there had been some initial work that the town had done. And we kind of came in on the later stages of that. Here we have a survey that was done by Owen Haskell, overlaid on the aerial of the area, project area. So the purpose of the parking is to provide access down to the hook. Initially, when we were brought onto the project, there was a design that had been done that had 4 parking areas. And when we looked into this further, and we had a meeting last summer with the town, and representatives, and going through some initial concept ideas, we also had kind of followed up on that for the idea of 4 parking spaces. So the idea was that you'd have some larger parking. I'm going, the way that this is, you can see the north arrow on the project, so, I'm gonna, if we look at this where Indian Point Road is, that I'm going to refer to the south side of this driveway. Those were some larger spots to accommodate, the direction that we had was, accommodate larger vehicles. And then maybe some just smaller, maybe more of your minimum standard size parking to the north of that driveway. So we took the feedback, we looked at different design elements, again, had a couple meetings where we, heard from some concerns, mainly being the site distance. And so we went back to the drawing board and we've landed with this design where we've eliminated one of the parking spaces. One of the reasons is because of the site distance and in combination with the slope on the north side of that parking area. There is a utility pole, and then the slope, it just becomes too steep that we didn't feel comfortable from the design side of things to put a parking space there. And then also meet the site distance, and so, it'd be a lot more grading and fill and area of disturbance there. So in communication with the town, decided that we could land on 3 parking spaces. And so it's, there are 2 11 by 25 spaces to the south of the driveway. The idea again was when we initially took the project on was to have, a little bit of a larger than your minimum parking area, and that was again to accommodate some of the larger vehicles, and also just to be, off of the road, limit the disturbance as you, move further. You don't want to have to, you wanted to have comfortable space for larger vehicles to, open their car door, unload, walk down to the beach area. And then in addition to that is the green area are plantings, and the idea is that we would put in some sort of rope and post fencing, so really kind of delineate the boundaries of that parking area, but it'll be gravel. Very similar for the area to the north of the driveway, so that is an 11 by 20 parking area. And again, meeting the site distance there. So initially, when we looked into this, and the permitting, we realized, because of the land use ordinance, this is why we're here tonight, because does not meet necessarily the dimensional, the requirements for a setback, but that's why we're asking the Board of Appeals to review this under the standards that we've provided in the application. And in there, we've outlined, the different, the traffic access and parking, pedestrian circulation, relevant erosion control. We do intend to put a compost, like a filter stock, silt fencing as needed. I did see comments tonight from a concerned citizen about the size of the parking on the south side. And so, again, that directive that we had kind of going through, this is just the grading, I'll come back to this, was based on kind of the prior work that had been done by the town over the years. So basically initially intended for 4 spaces, but just due to the slopes and the site distance, we reduced the spaces down to 3. We also, one of the reasons we eliminated that space was because of that site distance. So based on the speed of the roadway, DOT requirements is a 200-foot minimum, and we meet that almost right on the nose. Those 2 spaces are designed to exceed the typical minimums. So that's, we have a wider, you can go 8 to 28 feet by 25 would be about the minimum. So we have it at 11 feet to 25. And that was based on recommendations from the project contractor, the town. And I mentioned why we've done that. So there is the ability to minimize that, but again, it would be sort of having that communication with the town. But from a design perspective, it is an option. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay. The board will ask questions first.
I have none.
I have none.
Just had a question about the number of spaces. And how it qualifies, for an exception as a parking lot. So it's gonna be 3 spaces. And I thought I had read somewhere in here, some, reference to 4 spaces or more to qualify for a parking lot.
Yeah, I have to go back and go through that, the ordinance definition of what the definition was, because it did trigger it, at some, yeah, but I don't have the ordinance before me, unfortunately. But because it was like, yeah, if you follow through in the ordinance language, it was definition of, is either parking lot or parking area, maybe perhaps, and then that kind of kicked it into not meeting the dimensional requirements and then meeting that special exception.
Yeah.
So,
And did the contractor say why they prefer the 11 by 25?
it was the larger vehicle sizes, and again, we had not been involved in the prior rendition of the plan that was kind of sketched out. So I don't have all that background information, but in, kind of preparation for today's meeting, going back to kind of like, where did we land on that? And it had been, I believe the contractor thing was due, I don't know if that's still the contractor intended to, if this moves forward through permitting. But that was his idea, was the larger vehicle size, and then just not encroaching into the road and minimizing the extent that you're, because if you look at the right of way, you can see this kind of like little bit of a lighter gray line, that is the town's right of way. So you do have, ability to push it back, but I think that, kind of idea was, let's put it up against the road as close as we can to minimize that area. On the budding property, and then again, the plantings and the road to really limit, to delineate it the best we can without highlighting asphalt, and it's just gonna be simple gravel.
Is there a requirement for handicap parking, or is it just that you've made the larger space, the space is larger, so?
Yeah, and that is a great question, because this might come up, I think, in the other
The other application?
yeah, exactly. And so, so we have looked into that, and let me just get my notes on that. But yeah, I mean, there are ADA requirements. And, initially, I think when we talked through it last summer, it was, I think you had a minimum number that would kick in the need to meet the ADA compliance, but there is a standard kind of related to, it's called a maximum extent feasible standard. And so basically, the idea is that we are providing the maximum extent, for the compatibility. I mean, this could be marked out, and I mean, if it's determined that it meets that standard, and this is based on basically, do we wanna have additional grading or site disturbance? You have the markings that you need the van accessibility, but under the ADA compliance law, there, you are allowed basically to show that we can't meet full compliance. Now, I have not looked at it for this site, but a quick read of the cross sections is you cannot exceed a 2% slope, and in some cases on this site, we do. So, I guess it might be a question to working with Paul Demers, because he had helped us a bit in looking at the town's ordinance on that, but we're not providing any formal pedestrian infrastructure to get to, the area that this is meant to serve, the public access, the hook. There's no accessible route to a developed facility, that's another, and again, it would require substantially more grading, reconfiguration, and expansion of that disturbance footprint. And, that's what we can present to you, and I think that's kind of the question for the town, if that, meets the maximum. Have we provided accessibility to the maximum extent feasible? The other idea too is that this would be, compacted gravel, so it is a more solid surface. But again, it's not, we're not having markings out there to show that it's specific to the ADA compliance.
Has the town done anything about the thought of where do other people go? Cause there's oftentimes more than 3 there. And, they're gonna wanna park. I mean, this is probably not part of this process, but, will there be signage or something to prohibit people from parking in that previously considered 4th spot? And so forth, how they're gonna keep people from parking there when the 3 spaces are filled? And the other question I had, when you say larger vehicles, you're talking pickups?
Yeah, SUVs,
Okay.
yeah.
How about smaller? I mean, if you have a motorcycle, obviously,
Mhm.
that's kind of a can be a nuisance sound, the sound here when people have motorcycles taking up the space or golf cart, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, our kind of role in this is the design of the parking, and I think there is a level of like, what is the town's responsibility and signage? And yeah, I mean, are you gonna restrict, you know, motorcycles? I think that is a larger question and, but
It's not
yeah.
part of this, okay.
Okay. Further questions for? Okay, now we can take questions from abutters.
Can you just clarify, is the green bushes, is that beyond the 11 feet? Or is
Yes.
that part of the 11 feet?
No, that's beyond.
And have you taken, I'm speaking for my brother who did not attend, and I know he also sent a letter, but their leach field is there. And I just wonder, I know he is concerned about the 11 feet, so I'll raise that, he asked me to mention that. So I'm just wondering, okay, his letter said he did want it smaller, but now there's bushes and a fence, and I don't know if you guys know exactly where the leach field is for that property.
I do not know exactly where that is. I don't believe. Well, so if we're looking at the south of the driveway
No.
or the north side here, okay, so he's concerned.
No.
South, okay. Yeah, so the leach field is kind of in this clear dirt area
Oh.
or just right.
It's right there.
It's right in the area that's usually bushwhacked,
Mhm.
once or twice a year. Right there by the road, probably about 7 to 10 feet in. That means literally where I think you're planting your bushes.
Yeah, and I mean, that was more of a sort of, you know, we're doing this on Jinx Road, that was sort of where that idea came from. And we transferred it over to this and kind of be mindful so you don't look at parking. But I mean, that is not a requirement by any means, and I think. You know, again, the rope and post fencing was kind of keeping people from like walking on the abutting property area. So those are things that, you know, we can just either remove if that is what, you know, the town thinks would be best. But I would say, I think the fencing is important. I don't think, you know, maybe shift it closer, kind of making sure we have the clearance that we need. You know, and it's, you know, these are not, this is sort of almost conceptual with the plantings a bit, so I mean, maybe, yeah, it's kind of a little bit further out than we may need, so
I
we
don't know
can.
how you can do it, but I think it would be important for somebody at your end to go and figure out exactly what the outline of that leach field is. I know it's a big deal that my father-in-law put in when.
Do you know if it's within the right of way?
Excuse me?
Is it in the right of way?
I am not sure, because I don't think people really knew that the right of way, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't know that it went as far back as it appears to. So a lot of things were done without knowledge.
Sure.
I believe my brother could answer that question, and he's in California, so he would.
Do you want to answer that question?
Well, I mean, we did look at this and I believe that part of the leach field is in the right, it's on the right of way. I think the town, just speaking for myself, I think the town would be willing to work with the property owners to, you know, try to, you know, avoid conflict there.
Yeah.
It's really, and the vegetation screening is really for the benefits of the property owners, and if they're not concerned about that, then that's something that doesn't have to happen. So, but I think when we did the survey, that was determined that it's slightly onto the right.
So,
But we don't use the entire right of way for the parking spaces.
Right. Yeah, like, so here's the boundary, this again, this is my mouth, this is the edge of that right of way, and so here, this parking, I knew it's not the dimensions kind of take it up, but this is the parking, so, you know, again, we've kind of tried to keep it as close out of the grass area or the, you know, depending on where the boundaries of the leach field are. But if needed, you know, we can certainly remove these plantings.
Yeah.
What if the plantings were in
We don't know.
wooden planters and you actually had them linked with the rope? So
Oh.
they would do that.
Yeah,
Would be attractive
yeah.
and it would do the trick.
Right. Yeah, again, there's no, like, this is not designed like to a specific standard. It was more trying to find a balance there, but I mean, if that's what I think we agree upon tonight, we can make these, you know, changes. Yeah, that's a good one, because it's kind of, you get both, and maybe it's a question for your brother, if he wants the plants, I guess. I don't know, yeah.
Ask the thing.
Well,
They are.
Anthony's brother, Tim, has also written a letter.
Yes,
which
yeah.
is in our record, but we've already addressed the first part of that, which is the leach field part, but Tim Ballard writes, we also request providing additional gravel fill on the first 20 feet of our driveway, to provide a smoother slope transition to the paved road, be part of the parking improvements. This would improve sight lines in both directions when exiting our driveway onto North Road during busy time. And I can say that's beyond the powers of the board to grant anything like that. So we can't, it's beyond our scope. You may want to talk to code enforcement officer or something, but it's not something we can address here.
I'm not sure what Ted's gonna say. We are the people that live on Indian Point Road. And we are concerned, and maybe it's not what this is for, but we are really concerned about the bikes that block access to the road. We need to this is an active driveway. And we spend all summer long often calling the cop to get the bikes out of the way. And I was just wondering, why isn't there an area? I thought on the original plan, there was an area to get bikes off the road besides a bike rack. We have everybody here in the middle of summer, we have 10, 15 bikes, we have golf carts, we have lots of people that want to use the area from the south parking between the gate and that area. They want to use that to put all sorts of other things that transport things. And I'm just wondering, that might be out of the scope. Is the town going to address that with signage? Is there a way that we can get better signage about this is an emergency access, this is an active driveway, we have Susie's driveway, often they're both blocked, and we have to go there and move items or call the policeman.
Well, I know Vika said there is going to be additional signage down there. We can discuss, we have the right to impose restrictions or something, so we can suggest that there be more signage. I know there's a bike rack down there, but people don't use it. Oh,
If I could jump in, for those of you I don't know, I'm Ted Ballard,
Yes.
I'm supposed to stand up.
yes, and just identified.
I am Ted Ballard and I am in a butter in the southeast side. And I also represent the Indian company that owns the Indian Point property and is the holder of the easement over this area.
You might, Ted, you might need to come forward
Ready to go
there,
forward and talk about
if you would, please. Just,
Okay.
thank you.
This is really interesting, and I have been involved in discussions about solving this problem for 5 years. And I am very encouraged by what I see here. I think it's a little bit tricky. The question's already been raised about what's the right forum. The success, in my view about this, is gonna be the managing of the parking. That if the design is solid and can be approved, that's great, but it's the communication and the enforcement and the signage, all those things gotta go together, and I know there has been discussion, so I don't know who I'm exactly talking to. Because I don't know how much of that is under the jurisdiction of the Board of Adjustment or not, but that's what's gonna make the difference. Because as Mark comes to me, 3 fills up fast. And if the overflow is coming further on the North Road, that's a good answer, but that has to be managed too. A couple of things I would say, I think that the decision to go to 3 solves a lot of problems. And one of the problems in the early discussions was if you tried to have 3 spaces, that they would overflow on both sides because vehicles were too big. And going to the 25-foot long spaces means you really can't accommodate 2 pickup trucks. If they just stay where they're supposed to, then it'll work, and if you have enough distance to the driveway. So I think that's, goes a long way to helping solve what was part of the problem, is how do you do it in such a way that you don't end up by having a constant problem of people not being where they're supposed to be. And going down to the single space on the north side, I think is similar. It makes it a more realistic plan. It increases the overflow, no question about that. I think that managing the signage that needs to be assigned at the corner, where the cottage road goes around, because that's one of the key places that it needs to be clear that you cannot park. That's the most risky place, in terms of sight lines, as well as opposite the single space.
Okay, excuse me, Ted, can you point with a pointer where you're talking about right up there,
No, I'm talking about over here where the sharp corner of the line.
right there?
Oh, like, I'm sorry, like in this area or
No,
no?
Right over the left,
Right, right over.
right over the left. Keep going, right there.
Okay, right there. Yeah.
So,
That's the place you gotta get people to not park.
right,
Um,
so signage there.
Right, and then I don't know I don't know if it's included in that, I don't believe it is included, how these spaces are gonna be marked. So that it's clear to the person that's parking, and it's also clear to Mr. Mailman about his ability and responsibility to enforce it. That's been a source of some difficulty in past arrangements where it wasn't necessarily clear enough to be enforceable, and it needs to be clear enough. And I know that the town is committed. I know from last summer that efforts were made that somebody was parked in front of the gate, and even before I even mentioned it to them, they already had a ticket, which is what it has to be, that as Andy says, I mean, it's not only access to the private owners, but if fire department needs to get down that road. And we have had a number of rescues that weren't fires, but they were, rescues. For the purposes of the project, I guess I need to be clear, I don't think it makes any difference to what you're doing here, but I think that the status of the right of way. We need to assume it goes from the North Road to the Cottage Road, that the status of the road down the old Indian Point. Road, Indian Point Road is a private road and has been a private road for more than 100 years. So that I think, but I believe that if you just link those up too, it accommodates everything that you're talking about in terms of your design. I also wanted to touch on bikes. The bike rack is useful and it's used. And so it isn't in this drawing. But I wonder if it would be a good idea to include it in terms of where it would be envisioned being. And either something similar to what are there now, which is one of those metal ones, or there's also, I think, a discussion about doing one of the wooden ones, like the one at the down at the boatyard, which is a flat thing, and
Or a larger bike rack, because that one there,
so but if you, right, because that gets filled up, and I think going to the issue of the sort of, if the more that you can channel people into being clear about how to sort of go along with the program, better. And if there was room to have it be bigger, accommodate more bikes, that would be a good thing.
and clear signage that says, don't park your bike in a parking space.
Right,
This
well,
is your spot for bikes.
we are,
I think that's,
going to be in the process of putting back up the sign about Indian Point, which is on that location, and I don't know that you have that drawn.
Existing conditions, there is a parking here,
Well, not the parking sign, it's a.
hazard sign?
No, it's a wooden.
It's not.
so it's,
Okay, I
it's
was
not
like, this is from the survey, yeah.
over, there's the bike rack and there's a
Okay.
sign that tells you about Indian Point. Out there right now.
And I think you have the location of the gate marked. Although it doesn't look, it looks like a cross over to your left there, to your left.
Okay.
Oh, the other left.
Yeah, that, I know left.
Yeah, no,
Is this, the gate is
right
this
there,
right
right there.
here, yeah.
Yep. And I just mentioned that because it doesn't look like you're gonna, anything you're planning to do would change that.
No.
We're in the process of ordering material to replace the posts. One of them got knocked over, and broken off. And I wanted to hold off actually for this meeting to make sure that you weren't gonna do something, that would cause it to be a mistake to put them, replace the posts where they are. So. I guess once again, and I don't, Carol, I can speak to you, I hope that the town has in mind the management issues and the communication issues.
Certainly we do. We don't have unlimited resources, but we understand. I mean, it's been a problem prior to proposing this parking. So this was really intended to replace the loss of parking down the bottom, which was 5 spaces. This is 3. But prior to that, the past couple of years since the storm of 24, we've had parking challenges up there. I would say that the topic at hand tonight is really, the way I understand it, the Board of Appeals reviewing the proposal to have parking in these locations. And all these other ancillary things, I think, can be worked out with the town, but are not really part of the application process. Is that right, Lisa?
Yeah, we have not, and I've made notes here, signage, markings for parking, maybe the bike rack location. If we remove the planting, then that's certainly something that we could, in communication with the town, maybe add on to the, if it's a conditional approval or something tonight, add that on for help to, I don't know, assistance, but yeah, I mean, the review, the set of standards that we submitted were really related to the actual parking itself.
Yeah, and we can submit some conditions, that would apply not to your project, but to the town, like signage. So, Andrea?
Hi, I just wanted to ask, on the original plan, there was actually an area, not to give my brother's land up, but there was actually an area that was off the road for bikes. The bike rack wasn't on the road, it was pushed in the right of way that goes along there to get, because what I can say is for a bike rack, that means the bikes are in the road and they get pushed more in the road so that we have to get out of our car to move the bikes to get down the road. So I was just wondering why that kind of thought to move an area of gravel area that said bikes parked here with a rack that's not on the road, so that you're not preventing access to the gate. And just adding a bike rack on the road seems to bring, that's where the golf carts start parking. That's where people with their really long bikes start parking, because in their mind, they're not blocking the road. They're just using a bike rack that's kind of on the road.
I think that might be something to bring up at a select board meeting, and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mean to punt the problem, but if that's something that you guys could more appropriately consider, the positioning of the bike rack or the problem with the bike rack, or is it's not really.
Yeah.
It sounds more public works than.
Planning board hearing, I mean, it's a board of appeal.
So,
My understanding is it's really to determine whether or not this use is, is approved or not by the Board of Appeals. And so I think the town has every intention of cooperating with the community. I think this is gonna be a management challenge. And I think it's gonna require, oversight by a bunch of people. But I think the town's objective is to provide 3 additional parking spaces to replace the ones that were down the bottom of the hill. And then in terms of what we do beyond that, I think that's open for discussion, but I don't think it's really relevant to what this hearing is about. Is that right?
and it may require, I mean, if this is approved, then, and the parking spaces are installed, it may require a summer of observation on a butter's parts to see how well everything worked or nothing worked. So your observations are important, but they're not quite germane to this right now.
Right.
So do we have any other questions? on this? And Lisa, do you have any other points to make?
No, I mean, just from like a, regulatory background, this is the only permit, there's no wetlands involved, there's no, you're outside of any shoreline zone, obviously, in floodplain, so this is the only permit to, I believe, unless there's a building permit, but I should talk to Paul about that. So if there's any, again, the modifications, if, remove those plans and maybe the idea that you had, we can have that communication with you present outside of this meeting, but we can make those edits and.
Okay, well, I know you're trying to make the 6:30 vote, right?
It's 6:15, so I'm not.
Oh,
Right?
It's okay,
Yeah.
I kind of went in like, oh, that's too bad that 7:15 vote doesn't go today, but no, that's okay.
It's all right.
okay. Okay, well, then I think if no one has any further comments from the general public, then we'll close the hearing to public comment and we'll discuss the application and vote on it. So you guys know that in order to grant a special exception, the applicants we have to, how do we put it? They have to answer each of these 7 questions affirmatively. So we'll go over each one and we can read aloud what they have or not.
Okay.
I'm gonna, our secretary will do the reading.
Do you want me to read them or just make a motion on each one that? I suppose we need to read. Okay, number one is that the proposed use, that we're reviewing here will not create hazards or vehicular or pedestrian traffic on the roads and sidewalks serving the proposed use as determined by the size and condition of such roads, sidewalks, lighting, drainage, intensity of use by both pedestrians and vehicles, and the visibility afforded to pedestrians and the operators of motor vehicles. I would move that the proposed request for special exception meets the requirements of number 1.
Second, all in favor? Okay,
Number 2, the proposed use will not cause, it's a negative, cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water so that a dangerous, aesthetically unpleasant or unhealthy condition may result. I would move that the proposed request for special exception number 2 meets the criteria that it does not cause that problem.
second, all in favor? All right,
Okay, number 3 of the 7 is that the proposed use will not create unhealthful conditions because of smoke, dust, or other airborne contaminants. And again, number 3, I would propose that the request for these parking spaces does not create the items listed in number 3.
I second motion, all in favor?
Okay, number 4, the proposed use will be compatible with the uses that are adjacent to and neighboring the proposed location as measured in terms of its physical size, intensity of use, visual impact, and proximity to other structures, and the scale and bulk of any new structures for the proposed use shall be compatible with structures existing and permitted to be constructed on neighboring properties. Actually, this doesn't really apply to this particular one, so I would propose that number 4 is met.
Second motion, all in favor? Okay.
Proposed use number 5, the proposed use will not create new nuisances to neighboring properties because of odors, fumes, glare, hours of operation, noise, vibration, or fire hazard, or restrict access of light and air to the neighboring properties. Again, Yep.
Yeah, I have one question.
sure,
The neighbors, the abutters didn't weigh in on whether there's wild partying going on with people using those current spaces. So I assume that we don't have to worry about, say like the Slowbell day, maybe you shouldn't park here after 11 o'clock at night or something. Party on.
Well, let me respond to the question. I think that we're not aware of that being a problem.
Okay. That will suffice then resume.
Partying goes on down at the beach.
on the beach,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, I propose that item number 7, meets the requirements of the,
Fine,
of the,
that's 5.
5, yeah.
I second motion, all in favor? Okay, I just passed.
Number 6, the proposed location for the use has no particular physical characteristics due to its size, shape, topography, or soils which will create or aggravate adverse environmental impacts on the surrounding properties. Again, I propose that item number 6 is met by the applicant, that this will not create these problems.
I second the motion, all in favor? Okay. It's passed.
Number 7, the last of them, is the proposed use has no unusual characteristics atypical of the generic use in the neighborhood, which proposed use would depreciate the economic value of the surrounding properties. Again, I think the applicant has demonstrated that this would not have the suggested negative impact on the surrounding properties.
On the second motion, all in favor? Okay, so we granted the special application for the exception from, what is it, section 419, section, yeah, section 419.2 for North Road. So we will now reopen the hearing to public comment and go to the second item on our agenda, which is a hearing for special exception for the town of Big Island to zoning ordinance section 419.2 for James Road, which is mapped I-02. And same thing, does anyone have a conflict of interest? James Road or bias?
Nope.
Okay.
Down there anymore.
Proper notice is given, the appeal is the same as for, the town is looking to,
And 4 spaces.
to approve parking arrangements that provide public access to a beach or public area. So, we've already established that we have jurisdiction and that GEI has been given the right to act on behalf of the town in this matter. We don't need the code officer here, so we'll go right to the presentation by the applicant, which is GEI. Lisa Vickers.
Lisa Vickers from GEI here to represent GEI.
She's back.
I'm back. So this is on James Road. And this is the image that I have on the screen is the existing conditions, again, a survey by Owen Haskell outlines in these lines that you can see. The road right away for James Road. So at the end, the seaward end of James Road, you can see there's some existing areas of sand that are where people utilize to park. Also, drive vehicles for fishermen or recreational use. But this is a mapped coastal sand dune, which under the Maine Department of Environmental Protection's rules is a very sensitive and highly protected area. And based on our conversations with the town, there's just been kind of infringement on to the just to orient you, the north arrow here, to the north, and that's extending on to private property. So the use is, encroaching on private property. So we met with the town and looked at the site, and, you know, the idea was to shift that existing area that is used for parking further inland. So the idea that this could be potentially restored within the private property area, and access to the beach area can kind of maintain along the James Road area, and not extend outside of that right of way. So, separate from the project that we just looked at, you know, this is adjacent to a coastal wetland, which is what is a DEP, main DEP term. It is regulated back from the highest astronomical timeline, which we have on here. It's elevation 6.9. They have jurisdiction 75 feet back. It's also within the FEMA flood zone for a VE zone, and that's elevation 12. And so it's also in the shoreline zone. So we really tried to take those elements and push everything back outside of those areas, because those are, you know, we want to deal with the flooding, we don't want to impact the sand dune, and you know, maintain, I think just based on the town should be current ordinance, parking within the flood zone is not allowed. So we've pushed the parking back. We did meet again last summer to go through some different design ideas. You know, one idea was, do we park parallel on the road like we proposed for the North Road? And in this situation, what we've proposed is pool in parking, and there'll be the 4 spaces. So this will be 9 by 18, so a little smaller, again, to accommodate the right of way that the town has. And just to kind of lay this out, this is the actual parking. And to be mindful of the abutters, we have shown the plantings, you know, the idea is shrubs combination. This is just sort of conceptual in design, and there's, you know, the town has the ability to pick the plants as long as they're not invasive. And I would, you know, obviously we have a recommendation in our application materials for plants that would be suitable for this location, but also the idea of a rope and post fence that would help to delineate that parking so people aren't pulling further into the abutter property and outside of the right of way. Yeah, so I mentioned that they're 9 feet by 18 feet, and we did, as I talked in the last application, the idea of, do we make one of these designated ADA compliance? And again, as we looked into what the regulations require, it's that idea of this maximum extent feasible standard. And due to the limits of the right of way and the environmental constraints being that we're avoiding the flood zone, we're, you know, wanting to stay outside of the coastal sand dune. If we were to, you know, and being respectful that in our conversations with the abutters to really kind of minimize the need for parking, this will be a solid, firm gravel area. But again, I should say compacted gravel surface. There are areas that do meet that 2% slope, but the whole site, there are areas that exceed that. So that does require additional grading and fill potentially and reconfiguration, just extending the area of disturbance, which right now is about 1,895 square feet. But again, this site's purpose is to serve public access, but it is to a natural undeveloped public beach. There's no formal pedestrian infrastructure or accessible route to a developed facility. So based on that, you know, this is an area that we felt met, you know, there was some discussion of will we mark out spots, or will the town mark out spots that are fishermen parking only? And again, that's sort of outside the realm of what we're discussing. But this is the idea that this is parking that does not meet the dimensional standards under the land use ordinance. So what we've proposed and outlined in our application kind of outlines those standards and how we believe outside of that, you know, this is eligible for a special exemption. So pretty simple again, but yeah, and just to, one of the standards is erosion control, and just want to highlight, we didn't do that in the last one, but this is the kind of the idea of erosion control measures that you'll see. We have it identified as a filter stock, but that could be silt fence or erosion control mulch. But the design criteria were basically reduce the environment impacts and encroachment on private property, maintain that existing public access, so four total spaces, These will be 9 by 18, maintaining them within the right of way. And that layout, again, we had considered parallel parking, but that only extends the area of disturbance, so this kind of reflects the site constraints, the butter input, minimizes the grading and the disturbance, and again, providing accessibility to the maximum extent feasible standard. Any questions on this one? We have some beautiful drone shots that we took when we were out there, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
How are we gonna stop people from using the area that they now use for parking? Is that gonna be totally inaccessible because you have to leave open Jenks Road to the end? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, again, our project is for the parking, but that obviously was part of the conversation. And yeah, I mean, the idea is to, you know, rope this off to some extent, block it off so that, you know, it's people cannot access it with the vehicles. And that they'll have to, for parking, utilize that area, and then the access will extend, you know, along the roadway.
and sign.
And I think there was, and Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a restoration or signage, project underway in that location,
So
so.
there's a plan to restore the vegetation and do vegetation in that area.
But this is, you know, private property, and I don't know, like, what exactly the plan is how far it
Yeah,
extends.
in cooperation with the property.
Okay, gotcha.
I got some questions. I lived down there for 10 years and, obviously for the last, those 10 years observed for 12 months of the year, the use of that area. And the primary use of that area is for 2 pickup trucks over the last few years, but now it's, I think now up to 4 for fishermen. That's okay for the off season, but during summer, there's a lot of, dog walking, beach beach class looking, people walking, people picnicking. And sometimes there can be 6, 7, 8 cars down there. And all along the edge, they park in the 4 spaces that exist now, and then along the road. I can't see that changing. Are we saying that those 4 spaces, if they're occupied by the 4 fishermen, and I'm talking Gary and Jason's son, and Gary Sturdman. Used to be only 2 pickups down, now there's 4. And, or will be 4. And, people are still gonna wanna use the beach, they're still gonna wanna come down there, they're gonna wanna turn around. If they're gonna park, are they gonna be parking along the road? I realize this is not the domain of our decision today, but these are all questions I have from observing this. Is there gonna be a turnaround spot? Will there be a turnaround spot when people go down there and realize they can't park there? There's no space, they gotta turn around, or they're gonna go up to the mills and turn the mills into a turning around spot?
They already have.
You do. right?
really,
So, I mean, this is,
Richards Road too.
yeah, Richard, that they go all the way up to Richards Road or to the Castines or the Castines. I think it's great to have these spaces, but the fact of the matter is that there are times during the summer when, those spaces are filled. And, the turnaround is the back into the right of way that goes out to the beach. And then go back and leave, and then the rest, the overflow goes along the edge, usually on the pond side being the southerly side of the road. Is that right, Mills? Yeah, that's where they normally park, is on just by the pond side where you put that.
Right, they don't park usually, they park where the mess is, right?
They were parked where the,
They're not parking, they park wherever they can.
yes.
They crowd in all over.
So, I mean, what, the town, I think, needs to consider or take into consideration at least one spot down there where they can turn around, back and turn around, because they're gonna go down there, they're gonna look for a place to park. And they're gonna park along the road, and I don't know how the town's gonna control it, but that's not our decision today. It's just I'm raising these points. Now, another point I have, which is very personal, is that, and thanks to Sam, she noted that you have a clause on the map here that says that native plant species removed shall be replanted and an in-kind species and those provided with. This is a prime monarch habitat area.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You got 1,900 square feet of habitat that you're covering. And all I would, again, would be suggest that the town needs to take into consideration, some replenishment or do something to replenish the habitat that you're removing there. I have literally harvested caterpillars in that area to raise. In that same spot where the parking is. And the mills have helped me get them too. So, these are all questions that I have that I think should be considered by the town. I realize it doesn't impact the decision whether the approval.
No. Well, I think it is within our power to recommend that there be a sign way up near Richard's turnoff saying there are only 4 spaces here.
How do you
I'd go
know?
back if I were you.
But how do you know when they're filled? I mean,
Well, you could sort of, like, you're up on a little rise. I go there all the time with my mother and the dogs. And you can usually see how many people are down at where Gary parks. But I think it might be worth warning people and just out of consideration for you and for Richard and for the, of course, people who aren't anymore. That maybe, what do you guys think about something like that? Because I think Tad's right. 4 spaces are great, but people are just gonna go, unless there's a lot of parking enforcement, people are just gonna go keep parking in the park wherever
It's a
they
very
want.
popular place.
maybe the parking should be somewhere to become. Like,
You mean way up at the corner, because a lot of people park there to walk their dogs and do that sort of
know where the
thing.
big containers.
Right,
So,
First of all, the little black area on the very edge of that open space where our property is our bedroom.
well,
That-
oh, it's right there, that's your
That
bedroom.
tiny little, is our bedroom. So we, John, this is gonna struggle with this. Because on the one hand, who wants a parking lot in their bedroom? I mean, that's really essentially
Yeah.
where it's gonna be. However, we think we can probably plan out a lot of that area. But our main issue is the dune. I mean, the dune is what keeps Jenks Road alive. And if the dune is wiped out, and you can see there, it's a mess down there.
Yes,
The good citizen part comes in and niggles away, and then the bedroom part fights it off. We'll go back and forth with it. This is not an easy decision for us. And we, in terms of the 7 things, we will have dust. And there are blueberries in that area that looks sort of like an archaeological dig. We have a blueberry patch there. There will be dust. There are going to be fumes. There is going to be a lot of noise because there are people parking there. And so all of those things are of concern to us. At the same time, we think that the dune area is preeminent in keeping the rest of our property safe and alive. Now, you see what we call the bypass, like the Jenks Road off ramp, which has made that half moon part of the dune right there.
right,
That in the storms of 2024 was like an open door to the water. And you can see along that area where the pond is. Lisa, can you? There, and right at the edge of the road, there's a little white area right there. That's sand
That's from.
Oh, right here.
that came into
From
the
that.
pond from that storm.
Sure.
So it's really imperative that we deal with that. That seems to be a big environmental issue. In terms of the parking, people are gonna park wherever they can. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Just doing the.
And now, this could be a big money-making opportunity if you get 2 or 3 more booths and you put them on, but there also was talk about off-site parking up the road. And that would be helpful if you could figure a place. I've made a few recommendations, nobody is particularly interested, but if George Hayden would like
Oh,
to
you
give
mean-
us some of his property for the parking would be.
Yeah, well, people sometimes do park right, across from the
Yes, the
container
container.
and then walk down
Right,
or do the loop.
sure, whatever, I mean, that's.
Those
Most
people are gonna,
park as close to the water as they're Americans. They park as close to the water as possible. And that they're all gonna go down there unless it's police, that's what they're gonna do. And so it's just as simple as that.
but it can be done in a respectful way. Unfortunately, the people who are gonna be respectful are the ones who are gonna see that all 4 spaces are filled and they're gonna go to Chandler's or something where there's lots more parking, and the people who are gonna not obey the rules, won't matter
I
what.
do think this has seen increased use since
Yes,
the storm of 24, where the hook access has been limited. And maybe that will improve with the new boardwalk and all, but I think the reality is we're looking at pedestrian access to our beaches, just like a lot of other beaches in Maine. And that's gonna require a different approach. I mean, and I would say we have vehicles and we have people driving on the beach, which
Yes.
is another problem.
yes.
I mean, apart from the lobstermen, they're down there
Apart from.
bringing their traps down, yeah, I mean, it's always like that on Chandler, even though the rocks, the big boulders have been put in place, you can still see that people are driving those.
Yeah, Gary and Jason both offload and unload their traps
Yeah.
on Jenks Beach.
But it's people with ATVs or
We have those
TVs,
too.
whatever, they're all over the
Drive.
place. So,
So I think also, I mean, we had talked. About the number of spaces is gonna be 4, because 4 spaces were down below. And then we had also talked about the lobstermen. Those spaces were initially dedicated to the lobstermen. And then, as you know, people discovered them as the book was devastated, a lot of people came down and used the spaces. But we did discuss signage that we would have 4 spaces, and at the end of each of those spaces, there would be a sign. And they would say lobster parking only, and then it would be 5 AM to 2 PM. And I think if you don't have that, the lobstermen are going to be fit to be tied, and they're gonna go around and park on the beach. They don't have an alternative.
Yeah, this year, and starting last year, I think, it was always just 2. Now I think it's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
it
right.
is.
Yep.
Now, if there were off-site parking further up, maybe 2 of those people would park. And, you know, maybe Gary would pick up his turn then,
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't know.
They require a change in practices, it's difficult, we now have commercial fishing stickers for vehicles that are for commercial fishermen. Because we've had requests down at the Stone Pier, so I think. And have to walk the walk if we wanna be a commercial fishing community, but at the same time, I think. we have to be respectful of the property owners who have been very gracious in this particular case to really try to, as Lynn just explained, balance the community's needs with their desires, and I applaud them for their willingness to be partners in relocating the parking so we can restore the natural environment down there. So I think, you know, I really appreciate that they're willing to consider.
Well, could there be a solution like there is at Stone Pier where we have, where no parking is allowed in certain months? Could we just restrict?
Those are,
Parking.
yeah, parking is managed by the select board. There's a parking ordinance that we can
Right.
modify weekly if we want, and we've made a lot of changes. And so that is where we can make those changes. And I think, you know, I've heard some good suggestions tonight, and I think we did have, in the fall, maybe a big parking meeting. People had some very good ideas, and so I think parking's a challenge in a bunch of places, and it's becoming more of a challenge because there's more vehicles too, and so I think, it requires a larger discussion all the way around.
Yeah.
But the beach parking, you know, is changing because of the beaches changing, if nothing else. And these are, I mean, if you want to think of these more on the positive, these are resiliency projects where we are really trying to restore the dunes so they provide some protection. You know, and I think, you know, these are in part the community recognizing both at the hook and here that, you know, we need to move back further from the water and let Mother Nature do her thing.
I think, making people a lot more aware, like having a big sign in your face, because the piping plover issue that Krista especially has been wonderful at advertising. So you know why you're not supposed to go to the hook certain times. If we had a sign that explained, this is a delicate area, we're trying to revegetate it, please don't walk on it.
The town got a grant, a standing grant, and that is part of the grant, is to do some informational signage, but also some education about the necessity to, you know, stay off the fragile dune system. So that is happening, like it's, we agree.
No, there's been tremendous loss down there.
Yeah.
Just in the last 10, 15 years, I think 10 feet have been lost of the dunes.
Yeah,
It's
right.
just phenomenal.
And it is coming back. I mean, the interesting thing is, every time we come in the spring, we go down there and see how much property we've lost after the winter, or how much we've gained. And it's just reconfiguring. It's remarkable and interesting. So it's very much, the dune itself, which used to be quite, you know, the round, covered with grasses, is now flattening out, and it's like a mesa on the other side, and then it drops down to the water. And if, you know, who knows, maybe it'll be pushed back up again. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Well, if we recommended some sort of signage at the beginning that says, please be respectful of residents. Yeah, I mean, not only the dune thing, you're gonna have a sign that says, we need to preserve these dunes, but farther up. I know this isn't sort of your issue, but we can make recommendations like this, just to have a sign that says, be respectful of residents, please don't park on the side of the road, please don't turn around in the middle. I mean, it doesn't have to be that specific, but something to recognize that these people are your neighbors and they're making a sacrifice for the greater good, essentially,
Yeah,
right?
it's up to the town to control it, because people are gonna wanna use the beach, and if those spaces are full, with people with special permit or no permit, some are just gonna park unless there's some definitive way of their knowing that they shouldn't be there or park there.
Yeah, and there's a lot more people, there's a lot more Airbnb people coming in for the weekend who may not have been here before and may not understand that they're not supposed to park their golf cart on the beach.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for so many questions that come up that do need to be considered, and thank you to the Mills for being such good partners to work on. The fact that there are 4 select board members here to hear the concerns, knowing what needs to be addressed. We know that once these spots are built, there's going to be that time where we'll see what kind of messaging we need to fine tune or implement, but this is such a good step forward for the sand dune and for really sending the message of retreating. I'm really pleased and love the idea of these 4 spots set back, and we'll see what needs to be happening to further accommodate. So these are all questions that will need to be addressed at the time of construction and beyond. So there we go. That's all.
So shall we leave it to the select board to fine tune this thing? Would you rather we didn't put in any conditions, which is what these would represent, like signage or?
I think we know that we need to have conditions. I don't think.
I don't think the select board should advise you.
Yeah, I'm just,
Period, and so we're trying not to, so I mean, you do what you wanna do, and we're hearing you.
Yeah.
alrighty, okay.
I just
So,
have just a side note I wanna, and this is more of like a personal, but, so I'm a Hearts of Pine like lover. I go to the games, I have a season ticket, and we used to park in an area, all last year. And this year, the city of Portland put like 1 hour parking along where our usual parking spot was. And we thought, oh, yeah, whatever, we still parked there, even though we know we're gonna be there longer than an hour. And then they started ticketing, and that has really been like a game changer. So I don't know if it's like something that, the town can consider, but I do think where the pocketbook is can really start making the change that, and it's just, again, kind of outside of my scope here, but just a personal, like, a lot of people that we go to the games with have done the same. So anyway, just a side note.
Well, people could start walking up by George's container and just have a cart.
We have had more
Start a
aggressive
business.
parking enforcement in the past year or so, and it has made a pretty big difference.
and Vika told me that there would be more enforcement, once these parking spaces go in, that the enforcement would increase, so. People will learn. All right, so do we have any other comments from the public or like board members? Alrighty. Oh, Richard, do you know?
Nope.
Okay, then we'll close the meeting to public comment, and we'll just start our deliberations and have Tad here to read our.
Again, special exceptions, regarding this particular application, the proposed use will not create hazards or to vehicular or pedestrian traffic on the roads and sidewalks serving the proposed use as determined by the size and condition of such roads and sidewalks, lighting, drainage, intensity of use by both pedestrians and vehicles, and the visibility afforded by 2 pedestrians and the operators of motor vehicles. I would propose that the proposed 4 spaces do not create a hazard as spelled out in item number 1.
A second proposal, all in favor? Oh, yeah. All in favor? Or you just-
I agree that this is being hazard, right, so I can put my hand up for that,
Oh,
but I just don't think they should.
well, but Mary, you can vote, if you don't agree with these, you vote.
So I have to think, would it create a hazard? So it created a hazard that. How secure is the soil? where we're going to be parking cars, where we're going to be pulling in.
It will be compacted, you know, there'll be a sub base and then it'll be compacted, so, I mean, even though you may be, you know, excavating out sort of the upper end of the, you know, the soil there. The idea is that it will be, we haven't done any, you know, probes or anything looking at the soil conditions, but, so I can't say like, you know, that it's gonna,
Sure.
but it is a relatively level area, and again, the compaction, I can.
And-
Yeah, further, but.
This is all rock, it's gravel. The road itself, we're turning that.
The ground, the James.
sand- Yeah, we're turning that sand trail into gravel.
Not this area,
Where the, no,
oh, but this area,
no, where the,
oh, where the, yeah, if I go to here,
right,
yeah, this will be gravel.
this is
compacted.
just sand.
And
The survey has it laid out as gravel, so I don't know if there's like I mean, the road has to have some, I'm sure, level of gravel there, but the area where this gravel is marked here, that was from the surveyor, so I imagine, I don't know if anyone has more kind of historic knowledge of that,
It's pretty sandy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, I know that I can't go down in my leaf at all.
Right, because you get stuck.
Absolutely, I found that out once, that's all I needed, and I wasn't going further than the parking,
Mhm.
which is really not a parking area anymore, it is a sandlot, a great place to play if you're a kid.
Yeah.
And I just don't wanna create that same problem again.
Mhm.
will what size gravel? And will it, minimize if possible the, dust problem? I mean, we can't eliminate it from the entire road, but for the parking area, we could probably minimize it depending on the size of gravel.
So on sheet D1, there is a cross section, the gravel parking area detail. And there's some notes associated with that, but basically the image, I don't unfortunately have it on my screen. But will, you know, have some level of topsoil that's gonna be removed. But you will have a geotextile that's gonna be placed down, and then you're gonna have the, you know, the DOT. You can see it's a 6-inch thick, yeah, type A gravel. And then there'll also be for the existing undisturbed subgrade above that, you're gonna have 12-inch thick type B gravel. So it's a pretty, you know, it's a substantial base that you have there, and then it will be compacted down. So, you know, the idea, the proposed use creating more dust, I mean, it's not meant to be like a dusty parking area that, you know, people come in fast and it just kicks up dust. That's not the intent. And yeah, and I guess that's what I can speak to that.
So you've allowed for that possibility, I mean, that you've minimized the dust that this parking area would raise.
Right, and I mean,
Just-
again, I don't have any sort of subsurface information on hand, but what I could say is that it is, you know, this, for what it's worth, outside of the mapped coastal sand dune. So while I'm sure, you know, there is some sand within the sediment there, my thought is that it would be, you know, it's not gonna maybe be as soft as what you're seeing right up against the beach area, but again, that's a little bit of my opinion and not factual.
Yeah, I was surprised to see how far the sandy conditions were up the road.
Mhm.
It has.
Oh, that was storm related to a
Yes,
certain extent, with the
absolutely.
24 storm.
Absolutely.
Just, there always was a problem down there, but it just moved up north.
Well, I like the idea of lobster phenomenon. Or commercial fishermen, whatever. The rest of us can walk. We can, you know, get dropped off. And
Or we can make that a
A condition, yeah.
so, so meanwhile, back on part,
sorry,
no,
No,
no.
no, no,
Mary,
no.
This is what you're supposed to be
Speak up.
doing.
That's what you're here
Absolutely.
for.
We want you,
Item number 2, the proposed use will not cause, it's a negative, the proposed use will not cause water pollution, sedimentation, erosion, contaminate any water supply, nor reduce the capacity of the land to hold water. so that a dangerous and aesthetically unpleasant or unhealthy condition may result. The application as submitted does not cause the items under number 2 to occur. I move that we accept 2.
Except, I second, all in favor? Yes.
Item number 3, the proposed use will not create unhealthy conditions because of smoke, dust, or other airborne contaminants. And again, I move that the proposed application does not create the items listed in number 3. And that's, we're talking, of course, here just the parking area.
Yes,
We're not talking the road. Yeah. But that's a dusty road.
right, the proposed use as a parking area will not create these conditions. And I would second that motion, all in favor? Okay,
Item number 4, the proposed use will be compatible with the uses that are adjacent to and neighboring the proposed location, as measured in terms of its physical size, intensity of use, visual impact, and proximity to other structures, and the scale and bulk of any new structures for the proposed use shall be compatible with structures existing or permitted to be constructed on neighboring properties. And again, I think with some of the thoughts that we've had earlier, that we can list them the conditions that I would propose that this does meet the requirements and that the proposed use is compatible with the items listed in item number 4.
okay,
How about visual impact?
Well, that's a good question, and that's something that certainly affects the mills. And we can consider that in the vote.
So I'm with yes. Do you want to propose?
Well, I'm proposing that we accept it as written, and that would be determined by a vote as to whether it passes or whether it's
okay.
doesn't pass. And I might remind everybody that they need to meet all 7 criteria for the request for special exception to be permitted.
And we can agree with this and apply conditions at the end, or we can say no. It didn't meet any of these conditions. It's totally up to us.
Yep.
So,
Is it a majority vote or is?
It's a majority vote.
Okay.
yes,
Yep.
so.
So I've made the motion. Has it been accepted? A second?
Second, I
Okay.
second the
We're gonna
motion.
vote
All
on
in
the
favor?
item number 4.
On,
And those in favor of item number 4 would vote,
okay, all opposed?
and those opposed, good.
Okay.
Make a note of that. Thank you.
So 3-1.
Item number 5, the proposed use, Mary, I really want to encourage you to do what you're doing.
Yes,
This is very important. That's what we're here for, yes. It could be any one of us, not just you. The proposed use will not create, that's an N-O-T. The proposed use will not create nuisances to neighboring properties because of odors, fumes, glare, hours of operation, noise, vibration, or fire hazard, or restrict access of light and air to the neighboring properties. I would move that item number 5 that is met, that the proposed request for variance does not create those items as listed in 5.
just want to say, Mary, you can also abstain. If you do not wish to vote on something, you can abstain as well.
Good point.
Yes, no, abstain. It'll,
I do believe there will be odors and fumes and noise. especially since there will be trucks and we have really old cars and trucks on Schwega.
But will it create that, since those conditions already exist there? It's not creating those conditions, it's perpetuating those conditions, in my view, if. And you don't have to agree with me, Mary, but because there's already a parking lot there and there's already noise, dust, everything. That's a pre-existing condition, so.
Is there still a parking lot there?
Well, I mean, the unofficial parking
It's
lot.
been
people
there
park.
for decades.
Yeah,
No, but it's just a sand pit.
but it's, people park there,
It's been parking,
yeah, so it's,
can you consider it a lot?
I mean, it's, what's the right of way that? Yeah, prescriptive right of way when it's been in existence for 20 years.
This has been,
So
that's been down there
it's
since
essentially-
1880s, I think, that's existed.
So that's my opinion, that it's not creating, it's perpetuating.
Perpetual.
And maybe that's not a good thing, but. So I would vote to second it, and all in favor? Opposed? All right, one, already,
Opposed, okay,
and that's
fine.
fine.
So noted. Number 6, the proposed location for the use has no particular physical characteristics due to its size, shape, topography, or soils which will create or aggravate adverse environmental impacts on the surrounding properties. I would make a motion that the proposed, proposed parking area, will not create the physical characteristics outlined in item number 6.
I second the motion, all in favor? All opposed? Okay,
Number 7, the proposed use has no unusual characteristics atypical of the generic use in the neighborhood, which the proposed use will depreciate the economic values of the surrounding properties. I would propose, and I would make a motion that the proposed use does not create any unusual characteristics atypical to the neighborhood.
I second the motion, all in favor?
Unanimous, okay.
Okay, so the special exception is granted for the Jenks Road public parking area. Now, we can impose a few conditions if we would like, and.
Do we?
Oh, yes, oh, okay, oh, didn't we?
We just did each individual, so we'll do that.
Bad, right. Right. Yep. So,
I would make a motion that we, we're here to accept this
right,
grant a special exception, to allow for the construction of the 4th phase parking, what's the word?
yeah, it's grant authority to approve parking arrangements that provide public access to future public areas. So,
You want me to?
oh, yes. Sorry.
All right. I make a motion that we, approve a special exception for the application, that grants to approve the parking arrangements to provide public access.
Yeah, special, here it is, right up there,
This is
for a special exception to zoning ordinance.
for,
Yeah.
the Jenks Road application for 4 spaces.
Provide public. I'll second the motion, all in favor?
Could you state that? I'm sorry. I'm sitting here thinking, wait, so when I go, never mind. I just think about the fact that we park on the road to go down to Deer Point. We walk and we walk and we walk and we're all happy with that. We've got little kids with us, we can swim. Why can't we do that somewhere else? Okay.
Don't know.
I don't know either.
You're good about doing things.
I understand that the fishermen need to park near their work.
Okay, well, that's what we can consider in a condition, if you like.
That would be the condition.
Okay, but we do need to vote. I mean, we have approved all 7 measures, so we need to just confirm that by voting that
Approving
to
the
approve.
special
special
exception.
So,
We've also lost a number of book participants, if you will, since it's been blocked off. I know just with Allison, as an example, we haven't gotten her down there since that happens, and I know there are other people affected as well. I'd hate to see another beach kind of get taken off the list of easily or easier accepted, you know, in terms of getting there and getting back out. And I know we can, yeah, at least in my case, we can drop people off. And, you know, the long-legged younger people can go park their car.
I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I really do. I totally forgot that part. And, you know, we should have,
Sure.
drop off land.
Okay, that's a good point, and.
yeah, it's a great
and-
point.
And
Thank
the
you.
problem is with that, and I love the idea of dropping people off and then going back and parking up by the. The infamous,
Jerome,
lots, they still don't have a place to turn around down there.
Right, that's
right,
awful.
And,
It is, it's impossible. You could back up. That time I got something, I had to back up and turn into Richard's.
remember
Drive,
that
back
code
into
guy
Richard's
is
Drive.
that too.
so, you know, as much as we might encourage that, do we also encourage the reconsideration of possibly a turnaround spot down there strictly for turnaround and no parking? I don't know. Do we put that in
That
there
might
as a
be too
condition?
big. You know, too large of an area.
Besides,
For, we might make too large of an area for the purpose of turning around.
you know. And this is part of our discussion.
Just have a sign that says, don't come down here if you can't back up this road.
Yeah,
Right.
if your wheels aren't, how big are our wheels?
And avoid,
Okay.
and avoid the mills on,
Yeah.
on the way up.
So shall we vote on this and say with the following conditions?
With the following conditions, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so let's set the conditions that we'd like to set.
Yes, please.
I think one of them that I would like to remind the town that they need to recreate the butterfly habitat.
Mhm.
That's, we don't wanna lose more monarch habitat.
Do you want to vote on each of these conditions separately, individually?
Yeah, do you wanna just make a list, several?
Make a list or,
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
Yep,
I mean, whatever you want.
Okay.
You wanna vote on it?
If everybody feels,
Oh, I thought it was, we could vote one at a time as they're,
Okay, as they're brought up,
Yeah.
okay, so. I suggest that we add a condition. Requiring the town to recreate the monarch butterfly habitat that will be lost. By the addition of the parking lot.
Okay.
How about that? So, anyone
any
want,
other conditions?
oh, I thought you want, no, I don't know. Do
You
you-
want to vote on that?
So-
Sure, let's vote on it in front. Okay, I move. Want to make a motion?
I think I just did.
And I'll
I'll
second it.
never be able to remember what I
And
said.
I'll second it.
Okay, so all in favor?
we agree.
Okay.
All right, okay, so first condition,
4-0. Okay.
second,
I would like the parking spaces to be for our fishermen only. That's my suggestion.
Parking spaces designated for,
what if it were just certain hours, like,
What you said, I thought would be workable. Is 2 o'clock too early though? Cause they still have to be down there to get their gear off the boats, et cetera.
Is that something the town could do to work with the fishermen, designate hours rather than having us specifically put the hours in?
Is that something
Yeah.
you have authority to do?
We can suggest it as a
Yeah,
condition.
that's all.
These are, if they conflict with other zoning ordinances, they're out, but we can suggest that there be a stop sign or there be a slow sign. So,
This is the question, this is my first session, so I'm trying to learn, but, is our capacity to view it from the perspective of it does no harm, hopefully improves, doesn't violate any ordinances that are on the books versus, taking it to the next level. So I assume the planning board, and I would assume anybody, they probably, you know, I'm guessing they tried to come out with the best product they could in the circumstances. What I'd like to see is when, whether it be a company who's looking for a new manufacturing organization, new marketing thing, new R&D center, it's a lot of companies launch and then they walk away. And they never revisit it, and then they wonder why it wasn't successful. The idea is to launch with an ultimate goal, but to launch with a reasonable possible goal in mind. And to accomplish that and to revisit, to officially revisit, what are the metrics for success on this? What are the next steps? What's next on the planning cycle for this product? Because the island changes, the people change. It seems like we have to be a little more longer term thinking in terms of where we go with this. But I don't know, I'm just
well, some of these
Yeah,
questions
yes.
are meant to address that, like, does it change the entire neighborhood? Is this one, so I think that's meant to be longer term.
Yeah.
But certainly we can't cover all those things. We can also just say, not set any conditions, say the town will continue, or set one about something, but say the town should continue to work with the abutters to make the best arrangement possible and to check back.
Yeah.
See how the arrangement is working. So that doesn't have to be a formal condition if we know the town is going to be cooperative anyway, because they've expressed that they want to work with the abutters.
So you've met the base conditions, you're okay. Here are some things we think are critical for the future that you should be considering for the next go at this. I don't know, I'm just trying to, in my own mind, figure this out.
Right, so all we can do is the proposal is for 4 spaces, we can say yes or no. But the town is of course free to, a year from now, say, oh, those 4 spaces didn't work, we really need 100 spaces or something.
Yeah.
So this is not the end of the road, it's just whether this proposal
Yeah.
is acceptable.
So it's,
It
Yeah.
meets the requirements for a special exception, which are usually, it's a high bar to pass normally. But I must say, these consultants have given us such a thorough package. We almost never get a package like this. We get stuff written on a napkin.
That's where we start.
Serious. Yep.
So, I mean, this has made our job much easier because there's been, what, 2 years? Have you guys been working on this for three? But it went by so fast, it felt like 2. Yeah, so the town has put an awful lot of thought into this, and I don't think there is a perfect solution. Because as you say, the town is changing, it will always change, but perhaps
Yeah.
this is a
Just
good arrangement
moving
to
forward.
start.
yeah, we learn as we go and we go back
Yeah,
and adjust.
so,
I do recall in our discussions last summer with the select board, there was the idea that 2 spaces maybe would have the sign for the fishermen. And I do, yeah, and it was specific hours It was two in my mind. So I don't know.
And maybe the other, at least one of the others could be handicapped or handicapped. But
It was sort of like unofficial is what we were kind of thinking, like it would have been a little wider. Yeah, than the markings, but maybe not like officially, you know, with yeah.
So we could make a suggestion that 2 spaces be set aside for fishermen during certain hours. It's just a
it's just a suggestion, I understand.
not. And it can be informal too. We can just communicate to our town. But it's not bad to have it in writing. So if you want to make,
Do we want to just say, that the town consider designating parking spaces, specifically for the use of commercial fishermen? And let the town do the
Yeah.
rest?
that sounds great.
Okay. I would
I
make
like
that
that.
a motion.
Okay,
Or, not so much a motion, but it will be considered as a condition and
yeah. Well, I second that suggestion. All in favor? Okay. So
do we have any other conditions?
do we have any other conditions or?
I think, we mentioned that you're working with the butters, but I think
Yeah.
the town's had a history of doing that and
We don't have to
we don't
write
have to
that
do
down.
anything.
No. I'm concerned about the mill, but I
Just not that you have to write it down, but maybe one of the parking lots can stay empty for turnaround purposes.
one of the parking spaces,
Spaces, one of the parking spaces is for turnaround.
that's never gonna happen. I'm sorry, it could happen. It's a possibility. I mean, it's a good suggestion, but
No, the turnaround thing is gonna be a problem.
yeah, I mean, that
Question.
was my first thought. How many people are gonna go off into the parking garage?
But is that our responsibility or?
It's not our problem. If you can't drive, don't go down Jenks Road. You can't drive well.
And if you're gonna turn around, have a 4-wheel drive, right,
That's
Mary?
right.
But it can't. No. They call people, sorry, you could not pay.
Any other,
Do you have any other suggestions or?
conditions?
Okay, then we should just.
I'm good.
So we voted as we're set. Okay. We adjourned at 7:15. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
There's no, that's right.
There's, it's a good start.